Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scribo here, speaking to you from inside my house, next to my Christmas tree, um, from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. So I promised this morning that I would take a look at this great or grand conjunction that's occurring today, a little bit later today, between Saturn and Jupiter. And I would also pull some cards on it. So let's start with the astrology. And I'm going to share my screen with you here. And I think the first thing we're going to look at is the actual solstice. Okay, so here we have a chart of the solstice. And of course, the solstice, the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, is the point where we have the longest night and the shortest day. And then starting the next day, the light starts to return. And mythologically, this was about the return of the sun. Um, and the sun, S-U-N, which of course is connected to the return of the sun, S-O-N, which of course in our Christian, the predominant sort of Judeo-Christian perspective is the birth of the Christ or Jesus. At other times on the planet, the symbol of the son that is born and then that dies and is sacrificed had different names: Horus, Mithra, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an old story. It's the story of the birth of the Redeemer, right? The Redeemer, and the Redeemer is the sign of Capricorn, believe it or not. In a natural chart, Capricorn rules the 10th house. And the 10th house in this chart is right here. It happens to be in Virgo for this chart. But the 10th house is the way out, right? It's the way out of this life, redeemed and going back to spirit, as it were. So we have the sun here at 0, of Capricorn. We have a very close conjunction with Mercury of the sun. And we can see that the sun is relatively close to the south node. Remember, we just had a new moon solar eclipse that occurred at the south node of the moon in Sagittarius, asking us to release some old beliefs and plant new ones, as it were, new beginnings, right? And so we can see that this occurs at 5:02 a.m. in the morning on the 21st. So as I sit here at almost a quarter to 10 in the morning, the sun is already in Capricorn. So the solstice has occurred. And the next thing on the agenda, as it were, is the conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter. And we can see that particular chart. Sorry if this is a little wiggly here. Okay, and here we go. And we see that we have, where is it? Right up here, the conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. Still within orb, wide as it may be, with Pluto in Capricorn. And we can see here that of all the planets that were in Capricorn in 2021, the only one still left there is Pluto. Of course, we have the sun now and Mercury moving into Capricorn, as it does every time the sun moves into Capricorn. Mercury can't be very far away ever from the sun. So, all right. So as we as we look at this chart, excuse me, this is actually a chart that is erected for Washington D.C. and this particular occurrence here says it's 1:25 p.m. So about 20 minutes after 1 is when this conjunction occurs. Now, this conjunction is something that happens every 20 years, and it is considered a financial cycle. It is considered a societal cycle. It's how society is structured, Saturn, and how it expands that structure to support itself. And in Aquarius, it's a very different energy than the last conjunction, which occurred in 2000, which occurred in the sign of Taurus. And of course, Taurus is an earth, it's a fixed earth sign. And so Taurus deals with our essential needs. And in the 20 years since, we have come to be pretty intimate with our essential needs. In fact, at the end of this, the last conjunction, which ends when this conjunction occurs. So as I sit here, we're still in the last sort of throes of that conjunction in 2000. We find ourselves in a place where our essential needs, in many cases, is not being met for lack of funds, for lack of work, for lack of concentration by society on the essential needs of the people, right? And so now we come to this new conjunction in Aquarius, which is a humanitarian sign. It's an air sign. It's a technologically advanced sign. And so society will be based on different, in a way, different values, more humanitarian values, more group-oriented values. How can we live in community with one another? Um, there's really less warlike energy here, I think, than in previous turns of this particular wheel. Now, what you may notice here is I like to always look when planets move into a sign. Now, Jupiter, the last time Jupiter was in Aquarius was, I believe, 2009. The last time Saturn was in Aquarius was, I believe, 1991. 1991. No, 91 to 93. Saturn was in Aquarius. So that was 30 years ago. Hard to believe, but that was. And so we are both looking back and looking forward at the same time with this. Aquarius is mostly a future oriented sign. So there's going to be less stress on the past or how it was done in the past. Taurus, on the other hand, is a much more traditional energy. But of course, we also have to see as a society what works and what doesn't work, and what is needed and what is not needed. And we've had certainly 20 years an eyeful of that. So this, I always look to see, because we have both Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius at this time. I like to see what is going on with Uranus and Saturn, because Uranus and Saturn are both rulers of the sign of Aquarius. Well, Saturn is in Aquarius, so Saturn is in one of its rulerships. But Uranus is in Taurus, and here we have Uranus and Taurus right in the first house of the United States chart here. But what's interesting is that it is making a relatively wide square to these two planets in Aquarius. And as it's a square to this, Uranus being the slowest moving planet, becomes the focal point. So Saturn and Jupiter are applying to Uranus. And what we're going to see here is that Saturn and Jupiter are making last quarter squares to Uranus. Last quarter squares are crisis and consciousness squares. It is part of the individuation process. It is when we turn our backs on the idea that somebody has power over us, and we become more in a way, self-empowered. But in that process, it's not about self-aggrandizement, right? As much as it is about working toward the common good. So generally, the themes that we move forward forward from, or forward toward, or let's just say the themes are different this time around, um, and hopeful, and a little bit disorienting, because Aquarius is outside of the box. Aquarius is the rug gets pulled out from under you. Uranus, as the ruler of Aquarius, deals with the energy of disruption, and it's in Taurus. So, what are the things that Taurus is connected to? Our essential needs, essential food, shelter, water. All of these things become an issue through this 20-year period. Um, our money is changing. It's already changing. It's been changing certainly through 2020. Of course, 2020 with COVID hitting, the pandemic hitting the world, the economy has had to shift, or is going to have to shift if it hasn't already shifted. Um, so the very foundations of how we interact as a society are changing. It's going to have to be much more cooperative, much more cooperative. Um, and for somebody like me, um, I kind of like that idea. Although there's also a part of me who, it's not that I'm not cooperative. I just don't like to be watched over too much. I feel like I can be a responsible adult. I don't need somebody telling me what to do. That's also an Aquarius energy. Personally, in my chart, I have Uranus conjunct my ascendant, and I have a south node in Aquarius. So I am by nature a rebellious sort. So this is the type of energy that I kind of like. Uh, so I'm pretty excited to see what the next 20 years holds for us. So I think that's pretty interesting and pretty important to look at. All right, let's see if there's anything else I want to look at. You know what? I'm going to show you some relocated charts, just so we know that there are there are other places than the United States in the world. So let me just do a relocation here. So the first relocation I'm going to do is going to be for, um, let's do Greenwich. Okay, and England. Okay, and this is the Winter Solstice 2020. We're going to apply. And we'll also do Sydney. Oh, excuse me, the other side of the world, right? For all my Australian followers here. Australia, I think I have to, I don't know. I frankly don't know how to abbreviate Australia. Isn't that awful? Okay, and let's come out. So here is the chart for, what is this? Greenwich, England. Greenwich, England. And what we're seeing now, it's the same chart, right? We see the 0, 0 here. Actually, this is the, I looked at the wrong chart. Okay, I relocated the solstice. Well, let's look at this. So this is the solstice chart for Greenwich, England. We can see that the sun moving into Capricorn occurs in the 11th house, and that's interesting because the 11th house is the Aquarius house, and so even and this for England, of course, the solstice charts are generally in the energy of them move through that season, through the winter season. In the case of England, And so we see the sun and Mercury in that 11th house, and then like sort of a necessity to work together in groups, community organization, um, and such. And then the power brokers here are sort of in this 12th house. And so there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes in England here. All right, so and we have Uranus in the 3rd house. So this could be rebelliousness, um, taken to the streets in the neighborhoods, that kind of thing. A lot of upheaval within the country itself, much less so um, external to the country, right? With like foreign interaction here. Um, so there's a hunkering down here in England. Now let's see Australia for that particular. Okay, 1 second here. So this is Australia. And now for Australia, while it's the first day of winter for us, in Australia, it's the first day of summer. So things are flipped, right? For Australia, this is the longest day. And we can see here that it is located in the 6th house, this house of health. So a focus for the summer is going to be um, the focus for the summer is going to be more oriented towards health. And Uranus up here in the 10th house. This could be disruption. The 10th house in a mundane chart is often the president. Or, I think you guys are having an election soon, and I apologize for not knowing that. I'm barely up on the politics here, believe me. But there can be a change with that, with Uranus there. This can be more ecologically oriented, or climate change oriented. You might find somebody who's a little bit more amenable um, to the problems that we're having with climate and those issues. Uh, with Mars up here in the 9th house, um, this could be issues with other countries. I know that there's aggression towards Australia from China. I'm not saying that this is China, but there is that energy there. This could also be some more fires. Of course, that's not really a hard thing to predict. Um, One of the interesting things about this chart and all of the solstice charts, and also the conjunction chart between Jupiter and Saturn, is that Neptune is in a pretty tight opposition to Vesta in Virgo, Neptune in Pisces. And then, of course, we have the moon here conjunct Neptune in Pisces. And this is also, and it's square, we have a square of the nodes here as well. And so this is all issues of health and welfare, medical stuff like that. Oops, excuse me. I just dropped my cards on the floor. That's okay. They're in the boxes. All right, so now let me, I'm going to relocate the correct charts this time, or the ones I intended to, to do correctly. All right, here we go. Where is that? 17. Here we go. Okay, so we're applying to Sydney and Greenwich. I'll do Greenwich next. Okay. So this is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction we're looking at. This is for Sydney. We have this conjunction occurring in the 6th house of health and welfare. It is also the house of the military. It is a karmic house. It's a Virgo house, so it's mostly about service. And we can see that much of the energy of this chart is in that 6th house. And again, we have Mars up here. Oh, we have Mars in the 10th. Oh, and Mars and Uranus in the 10th. So I feel as though this is going to be, and of course, this is the chart for the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, which deals with sort of the next 20 years. And so we can see that there's more sort of community cooperation, helping those in need, um, taking things sort of seriously with the Capricorn that's in there, the Sun and Mercury. And perhaps, it's possible, why not, that they could perhaps experience being a leader in this climate change issue. And of course, we have a Leo ascendant. So this is about taking leadership. This is about taking form of leadership here. Okay, let's see. We'll see the other chart here for England. Where are we here? Did I do the wrong one again? Hold on a second here. What is this? This is Sydney. And this is, what is this? Event, Jupiter Saturn conjunction. Was I looking at the wrong chart? I am so sorry, guys. I don't know what's wrong with me. Probably need a little. Greenwich, England. Okay, let me just correct myself. Everything I said about where I thought I was in Sydney, I was actually in England. So, more community oriented issues in the sixth house. I see sort of a revamping of the national health system in England. I see changes in the organization, changes in government here, perhaps more concerned with finances, perhaps um, with Uranus there in Taurus. Yeah, so this is actually Greenwich. So, all right, now I feel better. Well, now what is this here? And this is the Saturn conjunction. This is for Sydney, Australia. So here you go, Sydney. And we have this in the second house of values, of money, of resources. And so we have really a new way or a new perspective on what's essential, what is needed. Uranus in the fifth house. Here, the ruler of this conjunction, for all intents and purposes, in the fifth house is an increase in creativity. So there's this sense of sort of almost, a little bit of flying by the seat of your pants here, but utilizing the creative energy of that Uranus in Leo. So I mean in Leo's house. Sorry. Um, yeah. So this is very interesting. I'm just sort of looking at it. All right, and then let's go back to the United States and see that in the United States, we have the government or the president taking hold. This could be this. What this looks like to me is this looks like Medicare for all, if or health care for all in America. Uranus in that first house. Is a rebelliousness. There's a rebelliousness. Now we do have Mars in that 12th house, so there will be hidden enemies working to disrupt things. We still have Mars square Pluto through this period, and it becomes exact, I believe, tomorrow, Tuesday. So this particular, like in the background, and then this is going to be making squares to all of the Aquarius planets eventually. And on inauguration day, Mars will make a conjunction to Uranus, and that will all square this. So we can expect continued rebelliousness, continued change, continued things are not going to go as well, big changes, big changes. Look, we have ideas of what's going to happen, but with these transpersonal planets, you don't always know. So I think that's it's about being open to, right? Um, to open to the changes. These changes are going to happen as well. And we have Venus here in Sagittarius in this chart in the eighth house. This has to deal with a fair distribution of resources. So big shifts and big changes. And of course, we can't forget the fact that in the United States will be going through their first ever Pluto return in 2022 and 2023. So the changes and the shifting um, is not over. Just because 2020 is over, now we have to work it because 2020 happens for a reason. And now we have to figure out how are we going to live with one another and live on this planet in a more holistic and cooperative way so that we can thrive, survive, and then thrive and allow the planet to survive and thrive. I mean, the planet will, unless we blow it out of the solar system, which we have the power to do, with nuclear arms, another issue that will come up through this 20-year period as Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is uranium and explosions, and so that's something else we're going to be dealing with over the next 20 years. Actually, maybe resolving some of the issues that we have been unable to resolve since we dropped the bomb on twice on Japan. Lest we forget, we are the only country to ever drop nuclear bombs on people twice. All right, so that's that. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at the cards for this. So I'm just gonna pause this for a second, and I'm gonna pull my cards. I dropped them on the floor. Hi everyone. Here we go. All right, so I did this like precariously perched on myself here. So we're gonna use the this new deck here, which is the Witches deck. I talked about it before. Again, let me see if I can stop this. Oh dear me. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. I think that should be good. It'll still wiggle a little bit, but not as bad. So we're looking at this conjunction that's occurring today, this grand conjunction. I'll look forward to what this is going to mean for us as humans living on planet Earth. Oh, goodness gracious. These are kind of unwieldy. And I have my elemental deck as well, if we need that. Okay, come on now. All right, let's see. All right. We have the first card here. It's called the Craftsman of Earth. The Craftsman of Earth. And we can see in this card, if you look at it closely, you can see all of these plants and animals and skeletons of animals. But if you pull away, you can see that there's a face in the foliage, kind of like the Green Man here. And so the first card that comes up is a card associated with our relationship to the planet, So primary concern here is our interaction with nature and our ability to create in harmony with nature here. Let's see what's crossing that. We have the Earth Witch here, Earth Witch. And so our challenge is how do we take, how do we move forward? How do we take on the staff of power? How do we, um, protect the earth? How do we nourish ourselves? These are all questions of, really sort of dealing with the essentials here. The essentials. Okay, let's see what's underneath it. It's underneath it all. We have the 8 of air, and we have this beautiful eagle over these flowers, mountain flowers here. And we have to look at the long view. We also have to look at the details. One of the things that an eagle can do is it can soar very high. It can see all the perspective, and then it focuses on something on the ground or in the water in this case, because eagles are birds that are fish. They're fish eaters, and they eat other things too, but mainly it's a fish thing. And so they look for the ripples in the water, right? And then they dive into the water and they grab the fish. And the fish is often symbolic of wisdom as well. And so so what's underneath it is the necessity not only to look at the big picture, but also to look at the small details and to watch for the ripples in the water and to take the opportunities that those ripples in the water afford us. It's like, oh, there's an opportunity, and to dive in for it. So at the root of it is an ability to see the big and the small picture and take action accordingly. Let's see what's in the past. We have the 2 of Earth. The 2 of Earth. We have a little cub and mother in the den there, sleeping under the you see the roots of the tree above them. And so this in the past is perhaps our relationship, that we were sort of sleeping, and we have come out of hibernation. Remember, the challenge card here had the shaman with the bear. This was the challenge. How do we come out of hibernation and take action, protective action? And so what the past says that we perhaps were sleeping to the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in. Let's see what's in the sky. Oh yes, the Great Mother. The Great Mother. So here's the bear again. A lot of bears in this, and we have up here an owl. And I just got a new decoration with the moon and an owl, right? That's interesting. And so what is available to us is the wisdom of Mother Nature herself and the feminine wisdom that comes with that. So this is more of a equal expression of the feminine as consort to the masculine in this, excuse me a second. Okay, I'm back. Had to listen to that. Excuse me a second. Okay, so the immediate future. The 7 of Earth. And hold on a second. I apologize for moving this so much. So this is a card with all these deer or elk on it. And the 7 of Earth reminds us that we need to sort of continue to forward. There's deer and elk are associated with the energy of stamina. And so it's about continuing to, um, you know, move forward, even if it doesn't seem like there's a moving forward out of necessity energy here. Um, there's also a community feeling here, and a gentleness of spirit with these deer. And so it's what this card says is that it's going to be challenging moving forward, but we need to remember who we are. We need to remember that we're not simply living upon the earth as guests, but I mean, I guess we are, but but we're part of this. The earth is part of us. Our body part is the earth. And so we have to take the steps to understand who we are in connection to that. The 7 is about self-knowledge. And Taurus, I'm not sorry, Capricorn, Taurus. Earth, in this case, is Taurus. The 7 of Pentacles is actually a Taurus energy card, and so this is an understanding of our interconnectedness with the planet, how it's seen from the outside. Um, Again, we have the 10 of Earth here. I keep pulling all these Earth cards. And this is our connection, and how a lot of the connection that we see is underground, is underground. And that understanding that and accessing that, um, and nurturing that connectedness to each other and to the planet, um, is is necessary. Is necessary. Our domestic situation, Pilgrim. This is the Fool card. This is about a whole new way of living. A whole new way of living. Hopes and fears. With 7 of Fire. I think this is another 7. This is self-knowledge. Fire is spirit, the knowledge of spirit that lies within us. So that we can actually make it, that we can actually take on the leadership that is necessary and do the changes that are necessary. A lot of why changes don't occur is because people who have the most to gain and have the most resources are the ones pulling all the strings, and that's why we can't find the change. But that's going to shift. That's going to shift, and part of that shift is happening in 2021, because in 2021 the major aspect is a square between Saturn, the tried and true, and Uranus, that which is outside of the box. That's that which is progress and in a more Aquarian direction. So we are in for a big shift in how we relate to money and who has it and who has the power because of it. And if we do not take the steps necessary, it's eventually going to happen, but it's better if it happens with our cooperation than without our cooperation, right? Okay, let's look at the outcome. The Ace of Fire, beautiful. So it's an ace, it's new beginnings, new creativity, new birth, rebirth, and of course, fire is spirit. Fire is spirit. Let's see if we can pick a major arcana. Oh, I just dropped it. Hold on one second. I gotta go get it. It just like flew out of my hands. All right, hold on one second. As soon as I can, there we go. Okay, we have the 9 of water, and we have the fish jumping out of the water here. Fish is usually associated with wisdom. That's still not a major arcana. 7 of water. This is an awareness of where the life water is, where it flows, and how life flows from water. Another 7. What are 7s? Yeah. And let's see if we can find a major. Oh, and the 9 of earth. Nope. No major arcana. Let me look underneath it all. And we have the messenger of earth. So, there are 78 cards in this deck. Most of the cards I picked out were earth cards. And I picked them from all over the deck. I didn't pick one after the other, like it wasn't shuffled well enough. So I think the big message here is one of this 20-year period is one of cooperation between people, but not just between people, cooperation between people and the planet that we live on. It's very exciting. And it's going to be very interesting to see how those who have a stranglehold on power, how that stranglehold gets loosened so that we can, and then they're instead of having what's the word I'm looking for? A vacuum, a lack of leadership, how leadership has to be from the grassroots and from the communities. And how does that get organized in such a way that the communities can do what's best for themselves, where the countries can do what's best for themselves and still live cooperatively with the other countries or the other states or the other parts of a particular area. So I think there's going to be, I think the theme is towards less, in a way, well, I don't know, it's hard to say. I was going to say less oversight, but more grassroots cooperative, community-oriented decisions on finances and less top down, right? More horizontal, which has its own challenges. But we have 20 years to work with it. So hopefully I'll be here for 20 years with you guys, or still be here for 20 years. And the next conjunction we can talk about, perhaps. Maybe we'll do it like with holograms. Who knows, 20 years from now. I'll tell you, 20 years ago, I didn't expect to be sitting here in front of my Christmas tree talking to you over Zoom. So you never know, right? Okay, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry about all the disruption and all the noise in the house, but this is what happens when I do it in the house. I just thought this might be a nice change of pace to do it in front of the Christmas tree. So, all right, guys, much love and take care. I will see you again, and perhaps if I can get my friend Denise to do a thing tonight, we'll do a high tea. All right, much love. Take care.